And we are live. Hi guys, today we are talking about the final year project, which is like a degree project on various courses at university. And today with me, I've got some of my students who I supervise for that degree project, and they're going to talk about their tips and tricks used for developing this project. So before we do that, if you would like to introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Elliot Walker and I'm a student of Computer Science for Games. Almas here is my supervisor for the final year project.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack and ditto.
Hi guys, my name is Roman and the same apply.
So you're all from the same course. Yeah, right.
Yes. We are mates.
Do you want to say something about your projects then?
Sure.
Just very briefly.
Sure, I'll go alphabetically. Okay, so my final year project involves the development of a very simplified and very limited simulator for orbital trajectories. And this is developed as a case study to observe how effects of simplicity in different abstractions to a simulator affect its validity and its user friendliness as a educational tool.
Oh. My project is I'm developing a programming language that's educational and it's for educational purposes only. So it's based on a lot of different languages, and then I basically just take the best bits of each of them and claim that they're my own.
Okay, and my final year's project is city AI, basically driven by utility theory. And in this project, I could utilize two systems of artificial intelligence working independently, but they can communicate to each other. And yeah, it was successful.
Nice. Right. So the final year project or the degree project, depending on which university you're in, has several stages. Again, depending on where you're studying this and what kind of course you're studying, the phases will be slightly different, but generally there seems to be a process, a procedure to it. So there are 5 phases on our course. I'll go through them briefly, describing what they are, and then you can we're going to go through each phase afterwards so that you can explain your own tips and tricks. And then I might add a few of my own as well. Sort of a for students by students kind of thing.
Sure.
The phases are project proposal and supervisor selection, which is the very first phase, typically done in October. Phase 2 is interim report and viva. This happens sometime in December, November type time. Product development is the third phase, which you're going to do after the viva. It essentially runs until the very end of the development. Report writing is something that you produce to submit as part of the project, which is essentially a document of up to 10,000 words. And finally, you've got the presentation, which is the very last thing you do, phase 5. And you present all of the work that you've done, and then you explain what you did, why you did it, and how it works. So if we now start with project proposal and supervisor selection, just fire some tips and tricks.
Sure. Right. So from my experience of the project proposal and in hindsight, the project in general is so imperative to choose a topic, a research topic. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. This is an undergraduate module. You're not expected to do a whole paradigm shift on anything or change the industry. It is very imperative that you choose something that 1, you enjoy, and 2, which you're relatively experienced with. You don't have to be utterly experienced with it, but choose something which is associated with your field, particularly of your field of interest. That's what I can recommend for the project proposal. Project proposal overall, it's just an overview of what you intend to do and accomplish throughout your project. As for choosing your supervisor, I'd heavily recommend going for one that you get along with and shares similar interests to yourself and can give you crucial feedback and honest feedback regarding your project's development, and a supervisor who tests your abilities and always constantly pushes you throughout the entire, module. It's a year-long module, so it lasts, I say, the better part of 6-7 months collectively, thereabouts. I think 8.
I suppose it depends on course and university, but yeah, I would have thought it's a year-long module just in general.
So as a result of that, because it's a long module, choose something that you get along with and choose a supervisor that you get along with too. And that's my hot tip.
Oh, right, okay. I've split this up into multiple different bits. So my first thing is to prioritize the process over the product. So this is kind of echoing what you just said, Elliot, which is just make sure that you pick something that is going to keep you motivated. And in return, you'll make a better product for doing so. My other tip is don't provide excessive detail. So this is something that I did. I kind of shot myself in the foot because I over-explained what I was doing and it didn't really allow for adaptation. So just be relatively vague. Otherwise, you might give yourself limitations. And for supervisor, I've got that you will become / already are the expert. So you're not supposed, your supervisor is not supposed to be the expert in this situation. I would recommend that you don't pick someone based on their knowledge per se, but based on how they work and how they organize themselves, and therefore how they're going to organize you. And then don't waste people's time, which is don't message multiple people frantically trying to get everyone to respond back to you straight away, because you're just going to end up telling loads of people that have just tried to schedule you in, oh, actually, I can't do that. And then don't waste your own time, which is that if you've thought of someone, it's probably because they're good, and so other people have probably thought of them as well. So you need a head start. But that's my thoughts.
So I had a rough idea what I want to do at the end of the second year. So actually, I went to my supervisor at the end of the second year. I had a call with him on a Zoom, yeah, and I told him my idea. I pitched my idea, and basically he provided me some feedback. He has provided me some like a similar project. Because what I want to do, I didn't want it to do like a game, but I wanted to do something that can be useful for many industries. So I will have like a wide range where I can go, or where I can showcase my project. So yeah, so that was the choose the supervisor. Yeah, I'm very happy with the supervisor for this year. That's like perfect. I would say what Elliot and Jack, what they said, yeah, I would probably follow these things, like how that person can organize the work, yeah, but try to pick someone who is like a related to the topic you will be working about, yeah. And the project proposal, yeah, I guess there is nothing else to add really. Just I would say create the Trello board and write down what you have to do. Otherwise, yeah, you can be lost in everything. That's my point. What do you think?
Cool. Yeah, that's perfect. What I'm going to add is, well, the only thing possibly related to timing, make sure to get your supervisor contacted as soon as possible, because there's only a very limited amount. There's a very limited number of students that each student can supervise. Each supervisor can supervise number of students. So make sure you talk to your supervisor possibly at the end. So yeah, you've done, Roman's done really well in terms of contacting people at the end of year 2.
Thanks. I would just add one more thing. I also wanted to know he's like some feedback if the project I want to do, if it's like even, if it's doable, or if it's like a good idea at the same time. So basically, contacting my supervisor in advanced, it also gave me some idea. Okay, this project seems to be the right idea to do.
Yeah, so that you can
also
have some ideas related to how feasible the project is, even before starting year 3 or the final year. Okay, good stuff. Phase 2 is interim report and viva. So interim report is basically like 50% of your entire final year project. And the viva is an examination. We do it in a formative way, so we don't give marks. We just say whether you passed or you didn't pass. Different universities might do it differently. And the viva has the supervisor and the second examiner who will be reading the interim report and then provide feedback in terms of how to move forward, the trajectory of the project, and so on. So do we want to go with that now?
Sure. Well, first things first, with the interim report, it's intended as a follow-up to your project proposal. So the interim report gives you the opportunity to lay out all the fundamental contents which you're going to be putting in your final report. The final report is between 6,000 and 10,000 words for our university. It might be different for yours, but using that as like a general area of the word count that you're going for, I'd heavily recommend getting ahead of time, going really hard on the interim report, get all of your bulk out of the way. It's always better to have more than less when it comes to content.
Yeah,
It's much easier to cut down on content than it is to just fabricate it in a contrived manner, which could impact the quality of your report at a later stage. So get your interim report done as soon as you can. That sets the architecture for the rest of your project, so it acts as like a nice, convenient guide. As for your viva, that's a very important piece of preparation for the presentation, which we'll be discussing later on. The viva is intended as a formal meeting between your second examiner, or second reader as it's known as, and what they're going to be doing, their job is to effectively back up the supervisor in terms of how they mark, how they observe the project. And these two, the supervisor and the second examiner, they constitute your primary audience. These are the people that you're developing the project for. These are the people that are going to be reviewing your work. So listen to your supervisor during the viva, and especially listen to your second reader. And yeah, you should be fine if you adhere to their advice and such.
Oh, okay, right, me again. Right, so I've talked about, I'm just obviously looking at my notes, methodology, which is, this needs some context, which is, I'm going to be a dork now. Oh, look, there's a book. Oh, it's Agile Project Management with Kanban. I'd recommend that you find the methodology that you're going to use and then simulate it. So for instance, when I was writing the report, I got a whiteboard and I actually simulated the process of tracking the development. Obviously it was fake, but what it allows you to do is identify any issues with the process earlier on rather than during development when it's just going to hinder you. So I'd recommend that book. And talking about research, I've said that it's vital to not fall down the rabbit hole at this stage. Research shallow and wide, not deep and narrow. You will specialize during the development stage or pick your routes. You need to give yourself options at this stage. And as Elliot said, obviously, this is kind of the framework of what you're going to be dealing with for the rest of the time. And then for the project Viva, I've said that it is a two-way street. So do not only answer questions, but also ask them yourselves. Try and get as much information back out of your supervisor and second reader as they're getting from you. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so interim report, very, very important part, and viva even more important. So hopefully we'll have a good second reader. I was super lucky this year. Very happy. Yeah, so interim report, as Jack recommend some methodology. I mean, I basically laid out everything at the Trello, and I have been following what the supervisor said during the lectures or during our meetings. So that's very important to do notes and follow what your supervisor will say, because he knows, or yeah, he knows why he says these things. So follow your supervisor, ask the questions, and during the viva, yeah, I believe that the best thing, as Jack said, also like ask the questions and answer them, and be ready for the questions, because obviously they both have to ask you. So just don't be like off the guard, I would say. Yeah.
Yep, good stuff.
Just
And
to follow up on that.
definitely, yeah,
Just to follow up on that real quickly, there's the off chance that your second examiner and your supervisor, know each other quite closely as colleagues, so they'll know each other's professional preferences when it comes to the project management and project work. So if you can, ask your supervisor about what the second reader looks out for in reports, by a
yep,
historic basis. That's always a good insight.
good tip. In addition to that, I would also recommend bringing pen and paper to the meeting, to the viva, because there will be a lot of notes to take during it, because you can't remember everything that's being said in the meeting. It's quite nice actually if you're doing it on Zoom or Teams, because you can record the meeting, provided that both supervisor and your second examiner are happy to be recorded. So phase 3 is product development. This is where you do the bulk of your development, whatever your course is. Since we're all in computing, it tends to be a piece of software or a game or a website. So something to do with computing, software engineering type stuff. And yeah, well, that was the introduction. So shall we look at the tips that you've got?
So product development rather. It may depend on your university, but our particular final year project, it doesn't necessarily require a piece of software, but that is a common go-to for a lot of computer science students here at this university. So you can go for an entirely hypothetical product, or you can go for a practical product. For example, in our case, all our cases, we're using a piece of software as a case study for a particular topic in our field. As for the overall process of product development, I'd recommend getting ahead, much of like the interim report or the project proposal. Get ahead. It is very imperative that you get ahead, because aside from the final year module that you have, you are likely going to have other modules on the side which may or may not distract you from what is effectively the core piece of your final year. For us, this module accounts for 2 modules, so 2 standardized 20 credit modules. So it's very important for us to focus on this. Let's see, I've got a few notes down here. Let's see. And be sure to show off your project, to your supervisor and your peers at regular increments, because this will develop, your project as a whole with feedback, and it will also prepare you for, say, the degree show or presentation, which you may have to give at the end of the module.
Okay. So I basically have just said one thing, and then I'll get to development, but be kind to your future self. And be disciplined about doing so. Whatever you do during this stage, write it down, save tabs, links, whatever you need to. Just it kind of reflects everything else that we've been saying for the rest of the reports, which is it's easier to get rid of content than to try and find it, and you're trying to track your process, and it's not necessarily clean, but just get everything chucked down and written down, and I can't stress that enough. And also drink water at regular intervals. And then more on the software side, that's kind of like just general. I've got a new favorite book. Oh, look, door number 2. Refactoring. Oh, sorry, Amos, you're going to get demonetized now, whatever you do on that. Yes, refactoring, because if you're working with some sort of software, it's likely that you're going to be working with it for a long length of time, and it's easy to kind of just end up with spaghetti code after a while, especially with a project that you kind of go, oh, well, I just need to get it done right, I just need to get it work, and then that's fine. But in my case, I've had to rewrite parts over and over again. But I think that if you get used to it now, it'll make your life easier later on, and you'll develop some techniques along the way that I think are much more useful in the real world. And I think it'll make you a lot more happy with your product in general if you can create something that is, you know, solid, clean. You can show it off to people. Just you can take pride in it afterwards, which I'll get to. But yes, just work with your code and be kind to yourself.
Okay. So first of all, as Elliot said, during the product development, you will also have to work on the other modules. So the very important thing is to have a personal life sorted out. So for example, you don't need to move from flat to flat and lose your time. I know what I'm talking about. So that's first thing. Don't waste your time. Be organized. Don't timing is very important. Another thing, if you wrote in your interim that you will be using, I don't know, Unreal Engine 4, and you will have a source control on GitHub, then you have to have it in the product. Okay, if you said that you will do some things, it should be there. It should be in the product. If you say that your product should also focus, for example, inheritance and modularity, you have to show it or point it out in your product. So yeah, otherwise that was fun. I had real fun during the product development. I'm really happy how it went, and I guess it's achievable. Yes, again, listen to your supervisor. Yeah, tell him the problem. Try to tell him the problem, and get feedback, and try to adjust. Yeah, that's get it working at least at some stage. Yeah, you will have to showcase it.
And also be prepared for change as well. You know, when we design something in the first instance, it's all like so, you know, glamorous looking, like very professional looking. But the reality is, as a student, as an undergraduate, it's very easy to like get ahead of yourself in terms of your capabilities. So expect to, I'd say, cull probably about half at least of your expectations when it comes to like your project's final like product. You know, I wanted to develop something like NASA's general mission analysis tool, for example, like a two-dimensional derivative for it. But let's face it, that's an industry standard tool that took a decade and 15 developers, you know, to manufacture. A single student, a few months, not going to happen. But you know, like Roman says, be consistent as well, but don't kick yourself in the behind if you have to make a few changes here and there. It's completely normal.
Yeah, you've pretty much covered all of my tips actually, which were mostly about managing expectations for the development. It's meant to be a prototype, so there's no need to worry about making it a finished, polished product. It will never be like that because you only have, practically you have about, what, 3 months to develop? Maybe even less, if you think about it. It's a year-long module, but you actually do a lot of other things in the module.
I would maybe add one more thing. I believe that the product by itself is just like 20%, isn't it? 80% is the report.
Well, that depends. We don't know.
Ah, okay. Right.
In our case, yeah, but in general, we don't know.
Okay.
In our case specifically, it's marked through the report. So what you do in the product, the marks actually come from the report and how you explain what you've done, why you've done it, how you've done it, these kind of things. Another thing is perhaps related to refactoring. It's useful to have it done after you've written the code that actually works. There's even a famous quote in software development. If the code doesn't work, it doesn't matter how fast it doesn't work. First get it to work and then refactor it. And then you optimize it and all the cool stuff afterwards. Right, next step is report writing. So this is where you produce a document of up to 10,000 words. And you essentially include all the things from the interim report if you want to, and if allowed. But mostly it's good to write the interim report in a way where you can reuse most of the work. So shall we go through tips now regarding how you write various sections, perhaps?
Right, so the report writing, this is perhaps the most long-winded part of the project. You'll find, I think, if you get ahead and you finish your product, your tangible product in time, or your hypothesis, whichever you're going for, you'll find that for 2-3 months straight, you may be like just report writing, and that can be like very like draining, energetically speaking. By this time in your project, you should have plenty of time to spare. I'd say maybe a month in advance to get like your report, at least a first draft of it, finished, so you can like continue editing it and adding all the content that you need to up until the deadline. If you're like me or any of us really this year, for obvious reasons, and you have like an extension in place, that's lucky. But in case you don't, again, get ahead and get your content fixed in good time, I'd say. Yeah, and avoid blabbing on. I mean, it's all very well and good like being passionate or like really interested about a certain topic, but it's also important not to geek out about it. You have to be coherent, concise, you have to be contextualized, and you've got to shrink a lot of stuff down to make it like clear cut what you're trying to communicate in your report. But yeah, I hope you like typing because you're going to be doing a lot of it. So yeah, if you can, see if you can copy and paste a lot from your interim. It's your content, so you have every right to use it.
Good. So my one is obviously a callback to what I've just said, which is now be thankful to your past self, because at this point your internal alarm bells are probably ringing. Mine have been for a while now. So yeah, I just wanted to set myself up earlier on so that when I was doing the report writing, I personally struggle with writing quite a bit. I just get too involved with the whole structure of the sentences. I get, it's just, if you struggle with writing as it is, the fact that you've now just got a catalogue of everything that you've ever done, now you just need to basically polish it. I would say at this point, like we've been kind of talking between our group and giving advice to each other or reviewing each other's works, and I think that that's really helped. Definitely keep in contact with everyone that's in your little group, the other people that your supervisor are working with. I think we've done a good job of doing that, and I mean it's helped me a lot, especially with giving like structure in that. And I think just get feedback, get advice when you can, when you need it, and drink water as well.
Definitely, good advice.
Report writing. God. So
That's high.
So I will just give an example. So I have got 3 documents. I have got one document which is the interim 2 report, which is changed things a bit to suit the product and everything. That's around 5,500 at this moment. Then I have got the AI research, which is 6,600. And then I have everything I have done, which is like 10,000. And now I need to make out of these 3 a 1, which will be the best. Like I would say, 8,000 to 10,000. I would be happy. One more thing, very important thing. So we said in the viva that you will have some certain questions, right? then speak with your supervisor, ask him about the marking criteria, right? Like what they want to see from you. Follow your deliverables, which are laid down in the interim. Okay, this is basically like everything what should be included. So if you cover all of this, okay, and also the module handbook, there is also written what it should contains. So if you cover like all of this or most of this, if it's possible, then you should be on the right way for a good grade. Okay, I can't stress out more the time, because that was for me, for example, time, because I have lost a lot of it. That was like a neck breaking for me. So I had to push myself really hard, and it was really stressful for me. So don't do it. Don't do it like me. Work consistently. Yeah, no, don't sort anything else. Focus on the school, and you will be fine. Yeah.
And drink water.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
As a last piece of advice for report writing, I'll add write down the section headings so that you have a structure first. That just generally helps in terms of where you put your bits of writing. And then possibly think about 1 or 2 key points for each section, and then write those down, and then just move from there. You got a point?
Yes, I have got a point. So exactly as you said, I also basically you will have to like yeah, you will have to have some plan for the project. So as Alma said, also go through the structure, and I have created for this in my Trello board like special cards just for these parts. Yeah, that's my tip. Yeah, work a lot with Trello. I like Trello. You might find something different, but yeah, I'm daily on that.
Yeah, as long as there's a methodology to it, it should be fine,
Yeah,
generally
okay.
speaking. Which brings us to the last step, which you haven't actually completed, so I'm interested to find out what you think about it. The presentation preparation. So this is where you present your work. It's about 5 minutes, the presentation. You talk about what you've done and you explain various interesting bits to the supervisor and the second examiner, after which they are going to mark you. So that's the last step. There's nothing beyond that.
Right. Well, let's see. At the current time of recording, we're all currently focusing on. Well, I think we're all currently focusing on our final reports. So we're all composing the material from our interim, our project development, you name it, into our report. So personally, I don't have much to comment on regards to the presentation as of now, but looking ahead to it, I'd have to say that in preparing for the mindset and content behind it and the approach I'm going to take towards mine, yeah, the looking at, participating in group meetings and showing off, my project, that's really helped quite a lot. Showing off your project helps with your oration skills, your presentation skills and such. As mentioned before, your supervisor, your peers can give you great feedback and realistic feedback, questions which people would ask you about your project. What does this component do? Why did you do this instead of that, for example? So yeah, don't be shy in showing off your project. We're all in the same boat. We're all undergraduates, and yeah, it's have fun with it. Just make a show and tell about it.
Right. I've simply talked about promote yourself, take pride in your work, which I know can be hard to do sometimes, especially if you feel drained or if you've had a hard time with the project. But after all, you've put all your time and effort into this thing, so just try and make it look as impressive as possible. I think one thing that I've always been aware of throughout the entire project is that it's a product. The label has always been it's a product. You're developing a product, so you need branding. Get a logo, maybe make something like a website or some sort of documentation or whatever it is, something that you can just get out there, something that you can throw at people. I think we're currently, this is a bit of a strange situation for us because obviously we were supposed to have an exhibition and now we're having to do a presentation instead. So I think that more than ever, digitally branding yourself is the best approach. And I think that's pretty much about it. Like we've said, we are concentrating on other areas, but I've always kind of kept in the back of my mind that I'm going to have to sell this to people that I don't know. And I'm just trying to take pride in it, get something polished. At the end of the day, this product is going to tell people what you're about in some way, shape or form. I mean, hopefully it should. You should have picked something that's to do with what your interests are, right? So, just take pride, I think, is my advice. I'm not going to say drink water again.
So the preparation presentation, I have actually, so I have done a 9-minute long video, which has been targeted specifically for LinkedIn. And basically, I have just said everything what I thought that it's important in that video. I have provided the audience with the link for the project, so they can download it and they can run it. Why I have done this? As Jack said, also like some promotion and stuff of myself, right? And also it can attract some, like recruiters and people who might be interested. Okay, yeah, he has done this. This looks interesting and stuff. And finally, at this day, there is 166 post views. My video has got around 40 views, and I have received like a four feedbacks, where people has been asking me questions. So at the same time, I know if you have no connection with my project or with my studies and I'm presenting to you this, then you might have some questions, right? So I can get ready for the questions which will come on my head later on. So yeah, that's how I done it.
Yeah, that's a really good approach to get ahead of the presentation itself. You're essentially doing a mock presentation before the actual thing.
Yes.
To see what people will think. Because your second examiner, well, they've only met you on 2 occasions or maybe even once during the viva. So they will have a completely different view of your project during the presentation. So yeah, that's an interesting tip, and I think it's going to work out.
There is also
Me
first.
Oh.
There is also one more thing. I had a timer on my phone, so I didn't know what is the timeline. So I had like a 9-minute timer. I wanted to get to the 9 minute. So I have seen, okay, I still have got like 2 minutes or 1 minute. Also because YouTube won't let you upload video which is longer than 10 minutes, I believe, in my license. Jack?
Yeah, I was going to say, expect to get absolutely rinsed. So I've basically have tried to take what happened in the viva, which was the questions that made me stumble and look like an idiot, and then really try to answer them and even like play devil advocate with yourself, make sure that you kind of go, but what if someone asks this? You might think that it's obvious, but just everyone that's going to be looking at your work is probably going to be looking at it for the first time. Yes, you target it towards your supervisor and your second reader, but at the same time, don't get too lost in your own headspace. Take a step back and see what other people are seeing. I just think that it's important to keep a clear head and not get too, within the mud, if you know what I mean. Over.
One last tip for that would be, for the presentation step, would be confident. Because you are the expert in your work. There is no one else who knows better, anything better about your project, because you've been working on that project for the last, 9 to 10 months. So you are the expert, be confident. And that was my tip for the presentation preparation, which is hopefully going to apply because you are yet to complete that step. Okay, we are more or less finished. So anything else you'd like to add as a sort of an overall thing?
Sure. Yeah, do what interests you. Make friends with your supervisor. Ask them questions. Don't go out to change the world because you're not going to. Not yet anyway. And yeah, just go in hard on this module, and you'll find that when you come to the end of the year, you'll be able to lift off the gas quite a bit and just enjoy it.
Yeah, don't burn yourself out is probably what I'd say. Being someone that's a bit of a workaholic, I tend to do it quite a bit. So I would say like I've tried to be mindful about the fact that I am a human and that I can't just consistently work all the time. And if you do so, you're probably just going to hinder what you're going to create anyway. Yeah, just keep yourself passionate. I think just keeping motivation. I think this is especially relevant given our time at the moment.
yeah.
Keeping yourself motivated is probably your number one priority throughout. And yeah, I think you'll feel the effects of it if you do.
And if you will burn out, then don't be ashamed of it and find help quickly. Speak with someone, speak with school office, speak with steward tipping or whoever it will be. Just talk to them. For example, I had to. So yeah, it's yeah, and try to enjoy yourself because this is one hell of a ride, really.
Indeed.
It's cool. It's
And
fun.
it's the last year as well. Well,
Oh.
typically dissertation type, degree type projects are done in the last year. So definitely enjoy your last year of undergraduate studies because everything else is going to be a lot harder, whether it's the industry or postgraduate studies. I mean,
It only gets worse from here on out.
yeah. That's a great way to end
Bright
this.
future. Yeah, it will be just worse, mate. Like a future.
Can you just cut the video there?
The future, making days worse, one day at a time. Okay, then. Thank you for joining me today to talk about tips and tricks related to degree and final year projects. Hopefully, we can all complete this module with, well, A's, really. You want an A at least to really get a good foundation for then getting into the industry. But we'll see how it goes. And thanks to the audience for watching. And on that note, I'm going to stop the recording.